Hey, before I let y'all politicize this or memify this, I just got to say I am glad that Larry Hoover is home. And I got to remind y'all that he was a political prisoner that was set up by the federal government, that he created the what was it, Chicago votes. He did so many things to really mobilize our people, and he was really targeted for that shit. And so before niggas get to cooning or doing whatever they finna do with this information, I just want to say I'm so glad that he's home, and God bless the family, and yeah, thank God.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Let It Be Known. I am your host, Stacy Brown.
Peace and love, everybody. I'm Niele Anderson, and we have a lot of headlines to jump into today. We're going to talk about a conference that's hitting New Orleans that's centered around Black feminists. We have updates on 𝗁𝒩𝒻 Robinson. And of course, yesterday news broke about commutes and pardons from Donald Trump. I mean, this train just keeps rolling. Excuse me. 𝗀𝗲𝗃𝗀𝗀, hip hop CEO. You just saw Chance the Rapper. 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗀 is the founder of the Houston-based Southern hip hop record label 𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗀. He took the social media to send a big thank you to Donald Trump for the pardon of Larry Hoover. He also thanked the pardon president, as they say, Alice Marie Johnson, for freeing and pardoning ex-Chicago gang leader and founder of the Gangster Disciples, Larry Hoover. Now, Hoover has been serving time for murder and running a criminal enterprise, but he still faces about 200 years in state prison. So, Chance, he's not home yet. So despite Donald Trump commuting his sentence, he still has an uphill battle.
He definitely has an uphill battle, and here to discuss it is right out of Chicago. Great Black press reporter, Jay Palmer. Jay, thanks for joining Let It Be Known this morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing great because my Southside White Sox beat your Mets yesterday. So yes, I'm doing great.
Yeah, it's like their second win of the year or something like that. Out of like 90 games.
Exactly. And to do it to you just made it sweet.
Just made it sweet. I know. I see all those tweets. Hey, listen, Jay, this Larry Hoover situation, break it down for us. Why is this significant? Why is everybody talking about it? You got Chance the Rapper talking about it. What's going on in Chicago?
It's a interesting situation. It's one of those situations where the Black Chicago community is definitely divided on. And the people who are not from Chicago may not understand this. So Larry Hoover was the founder of one of the largest gangs in Chicago, one of the largest Black street gangs in Chicago. Gang life in Chicago is very complicated. It's not just violence, drugs, and guns. When the gangs were originally created, they were created to protect the Black community because the Black community was being targeted by white gangs. If you check out Professor Lance Williams's book, Boss Daily, that he wrote a couple of years ago. Lance is a professor at Northeastern Illinois University. He's also a family member of some of the founding members of Chicago Black street gangs. He really breaks down what the gang culture is like in Chicago. There's a lot of violence associated with Chicago street gangs. There's also stuff they do in the community. So there's kind of this split that goes on here. Chicago politics being Chicago politics. Chicago politicians have always had this interesting relationship with the gangs and the gang leaders. The gangs oftentimes provided foot soldiers for would-be and incumbent politicians during their campaign runs. They were out there, helping to get out the vote. And in exchange, these politicians, once they got elected, would oftentimes do favors for gang members. For gang leaders. So it's a very unique situation that we have with Chicago gang culture. So the commutation by the President of the United States of the sentence to Larry Hoover has got the community divided because obviously we are victimized by a lot of the violence that is caused by Chicago gang culture. Anyone who doesn't say that is just full of it, to be quite honest. You know, the drive-by shootings, the murders, the robberies. A lot of this stuff is committed by gang members. People cannot deny that. And so it's very interesting to hear Chance the Rapper.
Go in like that too.
Right. And you know, we also have to understand that Kanye West also spoke on behalf of Larry Hoover's commutation during the current president's first administration as well.
But are we saying that Larry Hoover is responsible for all the current gang violence in Chicago? And then my next question is, you know, where is the level of rehabilitation? This man has been in jail for what, over 50 years, maybe?
30 years.
30 years. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but are you saying that he's responsible for the gang culture that's happening right now?
What I'm saying is that he's responsible for the creation of the gang culture that permeated Chicago. And while he was released, and I mentioned it in the article that I wrote, look, I'm a byproduct of the 70s. I was in my 20s during the 90s when Chicago's murder rate was at all-time highs. As a kid, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. You know, people talk about Chicago's crime now. It's nothing compared to what it was back then. It was extremely violent. And yes, Larry Hoover and Jeff Fort and other individuals, you know, let's not count out the Latin King street gang. There was a lot of gang violence just everywhere, you know, combined with the crimes that happened at the Robert Taylor Public Housing and Cabrini Green, which is also notorious. You know, they tore those buildings down, but you know, those were dangerous places to be. And it's just interesting to me that people are trying to forget that. And because when you're going to tell a story, you have to tell the entire story. So to hear Chance say that Larry Hoover was a political prisoner, I think there are a lot of people who are going to take umbrage with him putting it in those terms. I also find it very interesting that the Fraternal Order of Police, who backed the current president of the United States during both of his campaigns, you know, who run on law and order, and spent countless man hours, who lost police officers who were shot and killed by gang violence. It's very interesting that they're quiet, that one of the most notorious gang leaders got his sentence commuted by their candidate who they wanted to be president of the United States. So you see what I'm saying? There's a lot of dichotomy here on this particular subject. And a lot of people, I'm just going to be honest, a lot of people are not being honest right now. A lot of people
and Jay, I know Kanye was big. He was a big factor in this, without question. He was a big factor in getting this in front of Trump. But tell us, this doesn't, as Niele pointed out in her opening too, one of the things Chance said is that he's home. He's a long way from home. Tell us the process. What's next now?
So very interesting. We really didn't get the information until about, I'd say 11 p.m. Eastern time last night on kind of how this is going to go. So Mr. Hoover, while his federal sentence is commuted, he's currently being held at the Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado. That is the same prison where they had like the 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 and you know, the Oklahoma City bombers. That's where the United States sends its most violent criminals, which kind of tells you a little bit more about how they thought about Mr. Hoover. So his federal sentence has been commuted. However, he was convicted on state charges for murder. So he has like a 200-year sentence on state charges that has not been commuted. So Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who also has presidential aspirations, has not released a statement regarding Mr. Hoover's commutation, at least not at the time of my writing last night. When I published my story, the governor hadn't said anything about it.
We haven't seen anything this morning either, Jay. So
right. So the fact that the governor also has not come out and said anything yet also tells you the level of political activity Chicago gangs has. So Mr. Pritzker not releasing a statement to say anything, and he's considering a presidential run. It would have to be, he would either have to pardon or commute Mr. Hoover's sentence himself in order for him to be completely free. What this does, though, is it does remove one of those hurdles for Mr. Hoover's supporters, and he does have many of them.
Yeah, there are a lot of attorneys that are supporting him. And so I'm sure the governor is getting bombarded right now. But I want to talk to you about, in your article, you said you referenced bigger implications that this can have. You brought up the R. Kelly trial, you brought up the Diddy case. So talk about some of the implications this could have for or impact it could have on their trials.
Yeah,
I mean, not their trials, but their well, Diddy's trial and
right.
R. Kelly's conviction.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the one thing that people are not talking about. So R. Kelly was convicted in federal court on sex crimes, on sex charges. He also had two other cases. He had a case here in Chicago in Cook County. He also had a case out of Minneapolis in Hennepin County. So once R. Kelly was convicted on those federal charges, former Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx here in Chicago, she dropped all of his state charges because she said, well, he was convicted on the federal level. He's going to do 30 years. He's not going to get out of prison until he's a very old man. And it was very controversial when Ms. Foxx did that because there were a lot of cases here in Chicago. There were a lot of victims. And some of those victims felt like they got, how do I say it? They were deceived because they had spent all this time telling their stories to the state's attorney's office, and they wanted their day in court. And when Kim Foxx dropped the state charges saying, well, he's been convicted federally, you know, and I'll be honest, some of it had to do with money. Cook County State's Attorney's Office didn't want to pay the money to prosecute R. Kelly. Again, you know, especially after all the money they spent on 𝗀𝘁cie Hi:𝗱𝘆, whose case also kind of got dismissed yesterday, but I won't talk about that. And the same thing in Hennepin County in Minneapolis. Their state's attorney at the time, when they dropped their charges 3 months after Cook County did, said that they didn't want to put the victim, because in that case, it was just one victim. Mr. Kelly was alleged of prostituting the underage female. They said, well, you know, he's already been convicted on the federal charges. Our state charges wouldn't add any more time to his sentence, and we don't want to put the victim and the community, which I don't know which community in particular they're talking about, but they said the victim and the community through a trial. So they dropped their charges. So now basically R. Kelly is just a president of the United States pardon or commutation away from being released. And seeing that this current president has such an affinity for Black entertainers, for Black athletes who, when they get into trouble, he's there to, you know, all of a sudden scream, oh my goodness, the system is so terrible, blah, 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 blah. And again, at the same time, he's screaming that he's the law and order president and he has the backing of the fraternal order police. You get where the hypocrisy is coming from.
Oh, well, it's not hard to see it.
Right. And so it's a scary situation that R. Kelly could be released after only serving a couple of years on this federal 30-year sentence. Now, how does this relate to Diddy? Diddy is now currently in federal court. His case is a federal case. It's not a state case. They're going after him kind of with the RICO Act. Okay, same thing. You know, Sean Diddy Combs, he's a big-time Black entertainer. And, you know, we're talking about New York City, where President Trump was convicted on state charges. You know,
same Attorney General's office.
Exactly. So who's to say that this current president won't say, hey, you know, even if Diddy gets convicted, let's say he gets convicted and sentenced within the next month or two, there's nothing to stop the current president of the United States from saying, nah, that's all right, send him home. And again, you know, our community, you know, again, I love my people, but sometimes we get so caught up in so many things that we just lack seeing what's the basic common sense connection to a lot of these things. So, you know, here's a president, like I say, he has an affinity for Black celebrities and Black entertainers. You know, he'll easily, you know, let them out for stuff. And you have people who really are in need of these commutations. I mean, you can't take these things lightly on the state level or the federal level. And, you know, people have been literally framed by law enforcement. and you know, their cases can't get heard because they're not a big name who's got 1 million followers on social media. So you know, this thing is going to have ramifications in the Black community. And you know, I just brought up the R. Kelly and the 𝗀𝗄𝗪 Combs cases as clear examples to show people on how this can go down. Because remember, he's also flirted with the idea of trying to pardon Derek Chauvin, but you know, Chauvin was convicted on state charges, but you know, he also had a federal trial too. You know, who's to say he doesn't commute the sentences or pardon the men who murdered Rodney King? That was a federal civil case. So you know, people have to look past the entertainment part of this. Go ahead, Stacy.
Yeah, no, that's okay, Jay. I was just going to say we're gonna pick this story up as it happens. We're gonna invite you back because we know that anything that goes on in and around Chicago, Jay has a finger on the pulse. Check him out. What is it? Jay,
before we move on, Stacy,
no,
before we move on, definitely wanted to ask you, because you were talking about it, but so you don't believe that Larry Hoover has shown some form of rehabilitation? So you think that he should stay in prison?
So here's the answer to that question. He's been in the Supermax prison for 30 years. Nobody knows what Mr. Hoover has been able to do in that particular facility because it's the most secure prison facility in the United States. Those who are incarcerated, they are in their cell for 23 hours a day, every day, and are only allowed 1 hour of recreation. And we have no idea. The visiting access is very restricted because Mr. Hoover was running his street gang out of a state prison. His access to visitors is even more restricted. So nobody really knows. I mean, it's 30 years. Nobody knows
didn't you just wait a minute? You just answered that question. You said the question about rehabilitation. You just said he was still running a criminal enterprise out of prison. He was not
in state prison. Yeah,
out of state prison. That's not that doesn't show somebody who's been rehabilitated, right?
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, he was running the gang from, you know, he was using secret code words to his visitors when they came in. What happened? The feds got wind of what was going on. They put a bug in some of the visitor badges that you wear when you go into a prison, and they put like microphones and badges, and that's how they were able to gather the evidence on how he was running the street gang from the prison. And that's why they moved him into federal custody. And that's why they said he will remain in federal custody, even though his federal charges have been commuted. The state of Illinois doesn't even want to try to hold Mr. Hoover in one of their prisons. They would prefer that he is held in a federal prison. They've kind of come out and said that he will remain in federal custody in a facility somewhere outside of Illinois. So while he may be removed from the Colorado Supermax prison, that doesn't mean he will be completely out of federal custody. More than likely, he will still be held in a very restrictive facility that is run by the United States federal government. But again, with the current president of the United States, who's not to say that he may say, no, we don't want to hold him here or put him in a minimal federal facility. You know, you just don't really know. And that's why this whole situation is so precarious.
It's interesting because if he is released from federal custody, if the sentence is runs out because of the commutation, I don't know all the details yet, Jay, of what the commutation entails. I mean, if he's like saying that he's free tomorrow from his federal sentence, then he's back to state prison. There's no other place to put him unless you're just going to release him, unless the state agrees to release him.
Right, and the state will not do that. And I understand people have suspicions of the federal government. Look, we know what the federal government does, but I'm telling you, as a person who lived in Chicago, you know, Mr. Hoover, Mr. Ford, and other gang members are responsible for a lot of our people being dead.
No, I totally get it.
And that's the part people gotta stop, you know, trying to cut grace for stuff that's quite obviously. Lives were destroyed in Chicago in our community because of this gang violence, because of the drug culture that was going on that was perpetrated by these gangs. There are people who are not here today, and it's disrespectful to their memories.
No, you know, I totally get that. I'm from LA. I grew up in the 80s. We had gang culture that was just, but also the government put a lot of those drugs in the street.
Sure.
And so the government is just as responsible for some of the gang activity that has happened in this country. And a lot, I'm not saying that they're innocent, but a lot of them were set up by the government to do these heinous and devious crimes. So I just think that there is a, like you said, this is a not just white and black conversation. There is a lot of gray in the middle, and the government is definitely a part of that gray. But like Stacy said, we definitely have to continue this conversation.
Yeah, without a doubt, because it's an ongoing case. It's very fluid. We should have some more details on what's going to happen here in the next day or two. And yeah, I'll be happy to come back and join you because, you know, Mr. Hoover did help a lot of people. I have a couple of friends who were incarcerated when he was still in the state system. And they talk about how he helped them while they were incarcerated. He helped them get an education while they were incarcerated. And what I will say is that when he and Mr. Ford were not in prison, the gangs in Chicago had more of a structure. There was more of a leadership structure to it. It was almost like a corporation. And when the authorities incarcerated both of these men is where we saw the gang violence, you know, just kind of the leadership just got kind of splintered. And so it actually caused even more violence and gang wars because there was no structure. So now every gang had their own chief, you know, every block had their own chief. And so now even the gangs that Mr. Hoover created has been so splintered right now, you know, you can't tell who is who. You know, back when I was in my early 20s and a teenager, I knew who was a GD, I knew who was a BD, I knew who was a Latin King. It was very obvious who was on what team, so to speak. Right now, you have no idea. It's just kind of all over the place. So I will say that was one of the consequences of these men being incarcerated. So it didn't necessarily make things better, but things were definitely bad for a very long time. And, you know, they have to be held responsible for that to a certain extent as well.
Go to 𝗀𝗂𝗋𝗋reports.com and check out more from Jay on this and so many other things that he covers in and around Chicago and nationally too. So Jay, we're gonna see you again.
Thank you.
The thing is, yeah, I appreciate that. That's some serious information there. I agree with 𝘀𝐶ie on this. She writes in that the government is guilty, yes, but these people are guilty of killing their community. You know, because the government put it in the community doesn't mean you have to deal with it. And I find a lot of these people, a lot of these individuals, to be very intelligent. I would imagine if I sat down and had a conversation with Larry Hoover, I would find him to be very intelligent, which tells me that you could have taken that intelligence, understanding that the government was doing this to your community and done something totally different. And that's how I see it. But hey, that's just me.
Yeah, I have loved ones that are incarcerated right now, and it's just not that simple. And we were just talking yesterday about, you know, Trump, his administration, you know, easing up on pharmaceutical companies. You know, it's like who gets to be a drug dealer, who gets a pass, and who doesn't. That's the conflict I have with, you know, what justice looks like in this country, because it's like, you know, people, you know, have an opportunity. You have the government coming in, and they're kind of like feeding this situation, especially back in the 70s and the 80s. They were literally feeding the drugs. They were feeding the guns, and they were feeding the war in the streets. The police departments were. And so
there's no question about it.
And Maxine Waters even had committee hearings about this when Freeway Rick was incarcerated. And so I'm not saying that they should get a pass. I just want to know, if prison is about rehabilitation, when do they get rehabilitated? When do they get a second chance? Because if we look at what this administration is doing, Trump is giving all of his buddies second chances. He's giving the pharmaceutical companies to double down to still sell fentanyl in the streets, and it's okay. So those are my, you know, I get it. I'm not saying that he should be out, but I'm just asking, when do people get rehabilitated in prison?
It's a great question. I agree with that as well. as I said, the part about and no, prison isn't, unfortunately, it's supposed to be, but it's not about rehabilitation. We heard that in Public Enemy songs back in the 80s, um, but you make choices. Sometimes the choices are tough, but anytime the choice involves taking others' lives so you can make money, I don't I cannot feel too sorry for you, especially others in your community taking their lives. Yes, the government is going to do it. So should I just say, since the government is going to kill you, I might as well kill you? Absolutely not. That's how I feel about it. I get what you're saying. I got family members too who did a lot of time. Got a cousin who did 2 long stints, 15 and 13 years or something like that. Um, I get it. I lived down the street almost from where that Ed Byrne, that cop, got killed, and it changed everything, not just in New York, but in this country, and with the drug trade and all that stuff for street level and other dealers. It changed everything. The RICO laws became more and more intense after that situation. Fat Cat and all those guys felt the sting of it, and I get it. A lot of people I knew succumb to that type of lifestyle. And it was right in front of me. And I just knew that 2 things I couldn't do or would refuse to do was A, take a life, B, go to prison. And so you make other choices. And some people do get second chances. Most of us don't. You're right. You're 100% right.
Yeah. And the system is designed. That's why there's so many Black males in prison, because the system
Exactly.
is designed. And everybody doesn't have a a parent income or a single home parent. And so I just think that this is a conversation. I mean, I'm glad it's being had, because now
Oh, absolutely.
it opens up a Pandora's box of, the systemic racism in this country, because a lot of it has to do with, Black folks being incarcerated and how the system is set up and designed to do that. And,
Hmm.
just my question is, what does rehabilitation look like? How much
Right.
time does a person have to serve if they are in prison and they're checking off the boxes, moving towards parole, moving towards release? Should they be able to have that opportunity?
Yeah, yeah, right. And what's also diabolical about this too, and he mentioned it. He kind of touched on it. So Chicago, Illinois, you got a governor who seeks the presidency, who appears to be seeking the presidency, right? A Democratic governor. Minnesota, where you had Tim Walz run with Kamala Harris. New York, where you have not Fonnie, but Tisha James, who
Guilty.
prosecuted Trump. Um, so Trump, he's very, very, very mischievous and devious and etc. He's putting the pressure now. He By doing this with Hoover, now he knows that there are going to be people like Chance the Rapper who's going to be looking at side eye at this Democratic governor in Chicago who might say, "There's no way you getting out. There's no way I'm pardoning you on the state level." Same thing with the R. Kelly. He mentioned Minnesota. They didn't prosecute. This is a Democratic run state, right? This guy is not just. It is the fact, as you mentioned, this love, and you guys mentioned this love of these Black celebrities and athletes that he has. This idea that he should do something to step in, but it's where he does it at, and at a time you got to think about that. This guy is
Well,
really
no,
diabolical.
I said yesterday, Trump is playing a mean chess game. He's not playing
Hmm.
checkers, he's
Yes.
playing chess. Because what he's doing to me is a couple things. The first thing he's doing is he has Black men looking at him like, okay, he's really, trying to move something. And two, he's trying to normalize being a criminal. He's a
Yes.
criminal. You know what I'm saying? So he's
Yes.
normalizing and giving out get out of free jail cards because he's a criminal. And then
Hmm.
this is how he's mobilizing quietly the Black vote. So it's a
Yep.
lot to talk about, but we have to switch reels and talk about empowering Black women. But
Really.
before we get started, Greer has a video for us.
I knew that we would have this moment building when we had an uprising in 2014 after the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson. And I knew it because history tells us that feminist movement building always follows movements for racial justice. If you look at the 19th century, you have Black women and white women organizing around abolition in the 1830s. You have Mariah Stewart, who is the first Black woman to ever speak before mixed race and gender audiences. And she's a Black woman from Boston. So we give the credit for the women's movement to 𝗁 Falls in 1848, but really it starts with a Black woman in the 1830s in Boston. Then 𝗁 Falls happens because white women are like, well, we're looking at how these enslaved folks are being treated, and there is much of our condition that is similar to theirs. And then if you fast forward to the 20th century, the same thing happens again. You have folks who are organizing on behalf of civil rights, including white women who are coming down to the South in the summer of 1964. They're observing what's happening with Black folks, and all of a sudden they say, wait, we are also stuck in these conundrums in our lives, and we don't have full freedom. And then you get the women's liberation movement of the 60s and 70s. The same thing happens again in the 2010s. In 2014, 3 Black women galvanized this country to fight back against police killings of unarmed Black people. They do this with a specific and inclusive focus on queer Black folks, trans Black folks, and they say, we're going to get this one thing right about the 60s, which is
All right, there you heard it. And if you didn't know, New Orleans is preparing for the largest Black feminist gathering in the U.S. next week. And joining us now to talk about it is the executive director of the Black Feminist Future. Welcome, Paris Hatcher. Good morning.
Good morning. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, yes. Thanks for joining us this morning. And, this has always been a question I've been asking myself. What does it mean to be a Black feminist?
Yes, and I love that you played a video by Brittany Cooper, Dr. Brittany Cooper, who will also be at Get Free leading a workshop. I think that's a really important question to ask. Many of us Black folks have been taught that feminism is the F word, right? And oftentimes think of it as something of white women. But I like to remind folks, as Brittany Cooper was reminding people, that we have our own legacy, our own entry point that has nothing to do around white women and their aims. Since our inception from the continent, since we were stolen in our enslavement, no matter where we are in the world, Black women have always been thinking about the multiplicity, the multiple identities of our lives, that we have never just been Black. We have been Black, we have been women, we have been disabled, we have been queer, we have been all of those at the same time. And what Black feminism tells us, the gift that it gives us, is that it says that we do not live a single issue life, right? Like there's not just one single issue that we care about. And Audre Lorde, a Black feminist, tells us that it allows us to look at the world through our lived experience of living through multiple oppressions at the same time. And in fact, it is not a negation of men. It's actually that we love men, that they must be a part of Black feminist struggle, because patriarchy does not do anyone well, including Black men. So this is a struggle, a fight for the liberation of all people, all Black people.
So, and along with that, Paris, what are some of the other urgent issues that you hope that this gathering, this great gathering that you put together, will address, and what actions do you want it to spark?
Yes. So, this is not going to be just a conference where you come and put on your fly gear and have a good time. That will happen, right? Because I do think that's important. But the focus of this conference this year, of Get Free, it's a mobilization to build power. As we just showed, our keynote speaker is the Angela Davis, the revolutionary who has really given her life of service and what it means to be of purpose and on purpose. I'm really excited to be in conversation with her, because we know that though we are in the 21st century, the problems and the obstacles that our communities are facing are incredibly dire, and especially are made more dire with this administration. We're talking about our proximity to premature death. I think that's something that we really have to uplift, whether that is by the state through policing, through the stripping of the benefits that our people need to survive, over giving resources to tech billionaires, whether that be through the attacks on our bodily autonomy. I'm right here in Georgia, where Adriana Smith is literally dead, yet she is carrying a fetus to term. These are the types of issues that we're going to be galvanizing behind, that the stakes for our communities. We are seeing evictions, in particular of Black women and families, at an all-time high. The price of life and living is too damn high. So these are some of the topics that we are going to be focused on, not just so that we can learn about it, but so that we can take action about it.
Now, the Black Feminist Gathering is taking place in New Orleans, June 5th through 7th. Like you said, your honoree is activist Angela Davis. And so how can folks learn more about the conference?
So we have luckily, our conference is at capacity, which is a really wonderful thing. Really excited about that. We will have over 500 Black feminists gathering us from across the country and the world to be engaged in not just our keynotes like with Angela Davis. Also, we have 3 incredible plenaries talking about visions of Black feminisms, how we must as a people break up with with patriarchy. We will have workshops from people like I mentioned, Dr. Brittany Cooper, talking about what's the difference between Black feminisms and womanism, because that's also like a hot topic in conversation. We will have many offerings. We will also be having our first Skill Up and Fight Back Learning Liberation Lab, where we will be training people up in practical skills, like how do you do a direct action, right? How do you actually fight back from what you're seeing? Our people, and I don't know if our Black folks know this, but immigration and deportation is a Black issue. 1/5 of the Black people in this country are actually immigrants or migrants. They are taking our people from us. We need to know how to stop that. Our people are being evicted. We need to know how to stop that. We cannot concede prematurely. We must fight back. So the focus of this conference is to not just come and spend 3 days in incredible New Orleans and our homecoming dance. We're going to be having Tank and the Bangas. We're going to be having honorees like Billie Avery and Erica Huggins, Alexis DeVoe, people who have had decades of activism towards the liberation of Black people through a Black feminist lens. If you want to know more, check out our website, blackfeministreunion.com. We'll also be doing recaps on our YouTube at Black Feminist Future every day, and on our social media, in particular Instagram, Black Feminist Future, where you'll be able to see daily recaps of what the Black Feminist Reunion is all about.
One of our viewers, Paris, asks, Shonda H. says over 62% of Black children are growing up in single parent homes. I'm not sure where that stat comes from. Not sure I haven't seen that, but that's what she's noting here. But she's asking, how has Black feminism advanced the Black family in America?
That's a really great question. I don't know about that statistic either. I think that the statistics that we see lately, we have to really investigate that. I think about how the Moynihan Report, which was written in the 60s, continued to be this perpetual myth creator around Black women and Black families. I'm sure y'all as the hosts know about this report that really said the issue of the Black family is the Black woman. We continue to face, Black women are oftentimes seen as the problem, not the solution. I think our issue around the Black family, I think is really coded. Number one, the data that we do know for sure is that Black men are some of the most active parents that are out there, the most active fathers. So Black fathers are actually out there caring for families. So let's give that credit where it's due. I think also the way that our families can be strong is if we rid our communities and our society of systems of oppression. I think that's hands down number one. That if we start to think that oppression is around a one-on-one or interpersonal relationship, then we've lost the plot. We as Black people in this country have been dealing with systems of oppression for centuries. The systems of racism, patriarchy, racial capitalism, you name it, is is to blame. So if we want to talk about having strong families, strong Black families, we have to talk about the systems of oppression that have torn down our families. Let's talk about mass incarceration that doesn't just impact Black men, but also Black women. The rising number of people who are incarcerated are Black women in this country. We oftentimes do not know about that. We talk about the income gap. It's not just racial, it's a gender income gap. So though Black women may have the highest levels of education in this country, we have the highest level of education, but do not have access to the wealth that we need to be able to sustain our families from generation to generation. So what I offer is that Black feminism actually provides a blueprint for liberation and a blueprint for how we can build strong families. It is not against Black families. It is for building and sustaining healthy, strong Black families.
And I think one of the myths too is like a Black feminist is not a single woman.
Exactly. We are in community. We are in families. We have children. We look like a variety of different people. So I really want this community to think differently around who told you about Black feminism and why, what are they out? What is this myth? We have a lot of the red pilling that's happening in our community that is creating a gender war that is unnecessary. We need to be on the same side, y'all. As a community, it's very clear. We have an enemy, not just an opponent that wants to do us harm, that wants to divide us. And one of the ways it wants to divide us is to use gender as a wedge. We must be wise and smart and know that we will not be divided in that way.
I love
that.
It's
interesting. Yeah, interesting. Kia Woods, one of our viewers, asked a question that I had prepared for you as well. It's almost like she read my notes because she says, what does Black feminism teach us about how to navigate this current moment in socio-political climate?
Thank you, Kia, for your question. I think about this moment that we're in, and I keep going back to Dr. Cooper's clip because she really eloquently, and she has a great book called Eloquent Rage, talks about the importance of movements for racial justice as they're connected to movements for gender justice. And for Black people, Black women, we've never been separated for that. So when we talk about marches for suffrage or marches around anything, Black women have been at the forefront. We will not be erased. Our activism, our history will not be erased from forming this country. But in particular, Black feminism allows us to ask different questions. So for example, I mentioned talking about mass incarceration. What many people do not know, there's jails and there's prisons, right? So there are hundreds of thousands of people languishing just in jails. This is where you've not even been sentenced for anything. Right. So many of those people are just in there because they cannot pay bail. Around the 2010s, I think around 2014, Black women led, in particular Mary Hooks, a campaign to bail out, to free Black mamas for Mother's Day. It was really the first time that people really understood that mass incarceration was happening for Black mamas. That in fact, that there are people in jail right now who cannot pay a bail of $50 to get out and have been there for months, right? Because of a system that prefers profit over people and uses mass incarceration as a solution when we actually need root level solutions. I mention that as an example because Black feminism allows us to see an issue differently. It says that mass incarceration doesn't just impact Black men and boys, it impacts our entire community, and it allows us to ask different questions. Who's being incarcerated, for who, for what? What are the stories that we do not know about? And how do we make the invisible visible? It allows us to think and ask those questions. Right now, almost any issue that we're thinking about, Black women, girls, and gender expansive people are the most marginalized. So let's talk about the climate crisis. You think about it, our communities, Black people will be most impacted, absolutely. We live in communities that are under-resourced. So when we say we live in poor communities, that's actually not the issue. We live in communities that have not been given the resources systemically and generationally, right? Many of us are, when we are trying to evacuate our families, Black women are leading these evacuations. They have children. They're doing caretaking. We carry an unsurmountable burden in situations where people are most marginalized. So when it comes to any socio-political issue, Black feminism allows us to ask the question, who's most vulnerable? Who is invisible? Who should we really center in the solution? And it helps us create more whole solutions where all of us, now I think that's the part that people think, well, you only want Black women to get ahead. No, I want all of us. I want all Black people to get ahead. And Black feminism allows us to do that.
I love this. This is such a rich conversation, but we're running out of time.
Right.
I want to get through a couple more things. Now, there's virtual participation I saw in the press release. So
this year we don't have virtual participation. I know we were going to do that, but we really said, sometimes we do virtual, sometimes we don't. But this year we're not going to be doing virtual, but we will have recaps on our social media and on YouTube that'll both be photos and video recaps throughout the day. So you can find us on YouTube at Black Feminist Future and on Instagram at Black Feminist Future for daily recaps.
Thank you so much for joining us, Paris. This conversation was so important coming out of the conversation that we just had about, Larry Hoover. And I think, the Black village is represented on both sides. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too.
You as well. I think she also answered the question that another viewer had over the top was about minimizing their effectiveness by organizing around Black women issues rather than organizing with all who are victimized by oppressive systems that are controlled by a diverse power structure. I think that she did tackle that pretty well. And another part is I just think that you have, and I'm not speaking for her because this is not what she said, but I think you have a growing number of Black folks who say they are tired of carrying the water for everybody else. It should all be about Black folks and Black folks only.
Yeah, let's get to it, Village. Stacy, you had another story I think that went really well with the conversation that we were having about pardons that's taking place in Michigan.
Oh, yeah, you talk about diabolical and you talk about just outright low life move here. And critics are calling it low life. They're calling it dangerous. They're calling it, like I said, diabolical. Donald Trump says he's strongly considering pardons for the men convicted in the 2020 plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. He brushed off their violent scheme as the result of, quote, drinking and stupid things. He claimed that the convictions looked like a, quote, railroad job. That this is a governor, an American governor. This is a kidnapping of an American governor. And you want to pardon? You are considering pardon him? You are saying that, oh, it was, they may have been drinking and then it was a result of stupid thinking. Most crimes are the result of stupid thinking. This is so dangerous. In so many ways, he's letting even people in power, just like with the arrest of the Newark mayor, the arrest of those congresswomen, he's letting folks know that he is the all powerful in this country. And if you don't capitulate, you mean nothing. And he will squash you like a bug.
Yeah, I felt yesterday, I felt like the Oprah Favorite Things episode. You get a pardon, you get a pardon, you might get a pardon. I mean, and like I said, he's playing a cold chess game because he's finding a way to pull certain communities along with this nonsense that he's doing. But at the same time, it's like for Black folks, I mean, my question is, what are you supposed to do? If Trump offers you a pardon, do you not take it?
Right. No, you certainly are going to take it. But this stuff is, and, Gretchen was in his office, was in the Oval Office a couple of weeks ago, and you could tell that she was there under some duress. Um, and this guy, it's no more words. She says he's the criminal in chief. Nancy Wall says it's so hard to keep talking about how evil and diabolical this administration is, because they show every time you say that, they show you that they can get even lower. So this is absolutely disgusting. That, I mean, what else can I say?
Yeah, I mean, this is about being a Trump loyalist. If you're a Trump loyalist, you get perks. If you not, you could be on the chopping block. That's exactly what this is all about. I mean, we've been talking about it for the past 2 days. Loyalists to Trump. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities. Let me just say this: if you're white, because he's definitely shown that the only thing I guess he sees value in us is giving pardons and stuff, because he's definitely not giving out jobs. But you give out a pardon, he ain't giving you no job. But speaking of jobs, Stacy, it's official. Elon Musk has left the White House, and he took to Twitter or X or whatever it's called, because I don't participate, saying, Elon said, as my scheduled time as a special government employee has come to an end, he went on to thank Donald Trump and wish Doge well. So Elon Musk is out the door.
Well, he's out the door, but his destruction, his terrible reign, it's like he's left so much destruction in his wake, and this guy can never be forgiven for what he's done.
Well, he's also left with all of our data.
Exactly.
He's taking all of our data. He has all of our information, our banking information, our social security numbers. He has everything. But I also think that we should also not, jump for joy, because I think that the person who has taken over Doge, who is the founder of Project 2025, is worse than Elon Musk.
Oh, well, these are all folks who have bad intentions for people who marginalized people, middle class people, just about everybody who is not in their circle. They have bad intentions for.
Yeah. The only good intentions is to get richer. All right. To get richer. All right, let's switch it up a little bit. Let's talk about Shannon Sharpe. Now, we're gonna I don't know if we lightening it up, but we're gonna switch it up a little bit.
Oh Lord, Shannon Sharpe. Is he gonna get pardoned?
Well, he's gonna ask for a little more time, because he's decided to postpone the Nightcap tour. Now, that's the show he does with 𝗏𝗂𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 June 13th in Baltimore, but he's decided to push it back to 2026. And of course, the announcement comes as he is fighting a $50 million sexual assault lawsuit against his former young lover.
I've watched a couple of episodes of Nightcap. I didn't like him as a football player, but I certainly enjoy 𝗀𝘁_𝗧𝗂𝗯𝗲 on Nightcap. That guy is absolutely. He reminds me so much of what Mike Tyson has become with his hot boxing show. And this guy is hilarious.
You talking about
𝗀𝘁_𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗀.
Chad? Okay,
Yeah,
𝗀𝘁_𝗧𝗂𝗧. Okay.
yeah, he is absolutely a fun listen. He's a fun listen. I like listening to that guy. He's crazy as heck. I like him.
Right. But it's also interesting how Shannon has still been able to make lemonade out of the lemons, because he's still doing his podcast, which means he's still making money, and he's navigating, and this cancel culture did not cross him out.
Well, not just that. The importance of owning your own stuff. And Shannon, what he was able to parlay with 𝗪𝘁𝗍𝘁, out of ESPN, and then he's able to own his own stuff. He ain't firing himself. He's not suspending himself. ESPN suspended him. He ain't suspended himself. It's important. This is why we always talk about the black press. It's so important. You talk about how you enjoy, you know, you had time in mainstream. I've had time in mainstream, and we enjoy this. This is so important. This is another reason why it's so important.
Mm, mm. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with this lawsuit that he has with this young girl, but he's definitely moving forward, and thanks to like places like YouTube and podcasts that you can kind of go underground and keep it moving, and your fan base will follow you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And speaking of more news from Black men, Smokey Robinson is fighting back, y'all. He
Good for
is
him.
fighting back. He has filed a countersuit claiming he treated employees like family. And he's filed a $500 million defamation and elderly abuse action
Oh,
of his own, him and his wife. They're now going after the 4 former employees who have accused him of rape in a $50 million lawsuit. So
see, there you
I'm
go.
going to raise you a 0. I'm going to add a 0, and I'm going to say 500 million to your 50 million.
Oh, here's the thing. I've said this for decades, and I have not seen it. I've not seen much of it. We saw it with Jay-Z. When you are falsely accused, or if you feel if you are convinced you are falsely accused, stop not doing anything. Stop just putting your PR person, your publicist to give statements. Oh, it's not true. Blah blah. Prove it. And how do you prove it? You use the same venue that your accusers use. Jay-Z went after that attorney out in Houston, Busby, and shut him down. You
Yeah.
got to fight when it comes to these type of allegations. You cannot. If somebody accuses you of something, this is why I always had a problem, not to go down the rabbit hole, y'all, but this is why I always had a problem with Michael Jackson. Several $200 million in payouts for sexual assault cases with underage boys. $200 million. That includes lawyers, court fees, everything else. 200. There's no way on this side of the universe that you should be paying this out under the guise or because you want to, move on with your career and get rid of the distraction. Not on accusations like that. You don't
Mhm.
recover from them, and Michael never recovered from those allegations, even though he was acquitted. Never recovered. Took his death for people to lay off of him for the most part. And now Smokey Robinson, 85 years old, and these women launched some serious accusations, and now he's fighting back. Like I said, what's his name? Jay-Z. I applauded Jay-Z. Y'all know I ain't a Jay-Z fan at all, but I stood up and applauded when he went. He said, "No, we gonna do this publicly, and this is what y'all
Mm.
have to." Good for you, Smokey Robinson. And if you are innocent, this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and 500 million, damn well them women ain't even got a $500,000.
Oh, he's trying to stay in the
500
country.
million? Okay, let's play.
But I'm not speaking on it. I'm not saying that the women are
Oh
lying.
no, I
I'm just
know.
saying,
I know.
right?
I'm just saying. I just was like 500
Yeah.
million. They ain't even got a $500,000.
Yep.
But
There you go.
that is his rep. But I think he's also showing us, he values his reputation and his legacy. And I mean, it could be gone just like that in this day and time. And so he's letting them know, okay, don't play with me, ladies. I
Yep.
considered you family. Well, that's what he's
Yeah.
saying. Now, what they
Look at the
saying
picture
is
they
what he's
use.
saying.
Look at the picture they use.
I don't
That
see.
picture they
Oh,
use.
Smokey.
Yeah, Smokey. The picture they use. He seems to be saying exactly what you're saying. I considered you family.
You
Oh
told
gosh.
Harpo to sue me.
So Harpo.
But there's some sad news, family, coming today. Cool in the Gang fans, longtime member Michael Sumler has died in a car. It's conflicting news. Some people say he died in a car wash. Some people say a car crash. Details are still being confirmed. But this was over the Memorial Day weekend. He died in Cobb County. He was 71. And so we
Wow.
definitely want to keep the Cool in the Gang family in our prayers, as well as the fans.
Yeah, that's sad news. Wow. Yeah, I mean, you said it best. Keep them in your thoughts, your prayers, and our hearts go out to them for sure.
Yeah, I loved Cool. I still do love. They have some. See, that's when music was timeless. Like you could go put on Cool and the Gang right now. Summer Madness, summer is coming up, or Ladies Night, or She's Fresh. She's so. I mean, timeless classics.
I noticed Neil has to get a verse in every show, and we try to encourage her to do more than
Look,
just a verse.
hey, when we finish, when I get to work, and guess what I'm listening to? Cool and the Gang.
Well, that again, sad news out of the Cool and the Gang family. So, any more headlines from you, Neil, this morning?
I thought you had one about Obama and the Black Information Network.
Ah, yeah. So, this surprised me. I don't know where it came from. It's a good thing, but it's also very surprising because the Obama working with black media is just shocking to me. It's just shocking, absolutely
Oh,
shocking. But yes, well, listen, he just hasn't. He didn't when he was in office. His foundation hasn't until now. The Black Information Network, a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week national audio news network dedicated to providing fact-based, objective news with a distinctive Black voice, has announced a collaboration with the Obama Foundation to advance community engagement with youth. It's a multi-year collaboration, the first of its kind for the Black Information Network, and it brings together its mission to inform, educate, and elevate Black voices with the Obama Foundation's commitment to empowering individuals and communities to create lasting change. So it's what they're planning to do in a nutshell is really encourage Black youth uh, through the Obama Foundation and using the Black information to kind of you know encourage a future that's a lot brighter than the one we see right now.
right.
So
Yeah.
it's a unique collaboration, and Valerie Jarrett is actually the CEO of the Obama Foundation.
hmm Yeah. The Black Information Network is owned by iHeart. It is a entity of iHeart. So
Hmm.
I mean, you can kind
Oh
of
yeah.
look at the strategy because if you're on the Black Information Network, iHeart is the Breakfast Club, it's Big Boy, it's a lot of syndicated radio and markets WGCI in Chicago. It's 92.3 the beat out here is 92.3. I think it's 92.3 the beat out here.
Hmm.
Or is it none of them?
Yeah.
One of them. But iHeart owns all the radio stations across the country. And so shout out to Chris Thompson. He's the VP over there. He used to work for Radio One on the Tom Joyner show. Now he's the VP at the Black Information Network. And so a good partnership. Because that network is definitely centered in Blackness, but it is owned by iHeart.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, should I take back what I said about Obama Foundation finally working with
No,
black,
because
black media?
well, Black Information Network
Is
is the
right,
leadership
but
is Black. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's still Mr. Johnny still runs it though. Yeah, iHeart is also a big Trump donor, says RNG. Is that true?
Well, I mean, corporations like that, they donate to both parties because they never know who's
Okay.
going to win. So I don't doubt that they donated to Trump, but I'm pretty sure if you check the records, they've donated to the Democratic Party as well.
And one last headline, courtesy of RNG, that price of crawfish is way down. He says $80 for 35 pounds of live crawfish. Last year, the
Ooh.
price was $135. You eat crawfish?
I love
Yeah.
crawfish. I was
Oh,
actually this weekend showing my family this machine we need to get to have a crawfish broil. And I was like, look at the seasoning. They got the oranges, they got the lemons, they got the craw boil seasoning. Yeah, I'm a huge crawfish eater, especially, but you have to get it from somebody who knows how to season the crawfish because if you just get crawfish and they're not seasoned, they're not as good. That's why I love the
that's good.
ones from Louisiana.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, Learn something every
Potato,
day.
sausage, and some corn for sure.
She laid out the whole meal. I see, and I see RNG on the grill and stuff. He posts sometimes. He's on the grill, so I get to see some of that stuff from afar. He has all that stuff on the grill.
Mm.
So crawfish season has been great this year, says Shonda H. So I guess they're having fun out there. So, okay.
Send some to
All right.
California.
So we got to pull somebody's black card.
Okay.
And it is with pleasure that I pulled the black card of Lawrence Jones. The Fox News host again showed his true enslaved mentality when he tried to go in on Rep. Ro Khanna that voters are turned off by Democrats. But Jones, who continues to be one of those card-carrying dictionary meanings of a House Negro, claimed that the Democrats have the lowest approval ratings ever, and he started using and throwing around that what has become a racist talking point, calling them woke. Then he blasted Khanna for supporting Joe Biden's re-election bid, saying that the former president isn't mentally sharp yet, but his master Trump is very much mentally sharp, according to Mr. Jones there. Go away. This guy's dumb, and he's hateful, and he spreads the hate. It reminds me of this story that this with NABJ that April Ryan was texting about yesterday or last night, that it's some sort of shakeup going on there at NABJ. And then Harris Faulkner comes out and claims that they tried to set Trump up backstage. It's just, I mean, she's another one, Harris Faulkner. Oh gosh. But not to go down there again, but that should never have happened in the first place. That whole Trump situation should never have happened. And so they're having some resignations over there at NABJ as well. And an election is coming up, which is they desperately need a new leadership there for sure after that debacle last year.
Yeah,
So
I saw on their Twitter, on their, well, no, I don't do Twitter, on their Instagram handle, they put out some type of statement yesterday, and I was like, I was reading through it, and I was like, well, what does this mean? Because usually they put out a statement if somebody at a television station or a newspaper had done something, but it did seem like it was a statement about internal things that were happening. And so now, that puts the puzzle together. So I'll go back and read it again, and I might have more understanding about it. Because I didn't get it yesterday.
oh boy, was it Ken Lemon? Is the current president over there, right? Ken Lemon, and who really should have been his last day as president. The day he brought that guy in and Harris Faulkner in, and give me a break. Anyway, give some black facts on this date. Folks, in 1851, Sojourner Truth delivered her powerful "Ain't I a Woman" speech at the Ohio Women's Rights Convention. Conviction. See, we keep talking about people getting convicted. The historic speech asserted her right to equality as a woman and a Black American. That is awesome.
How fitting that today we had on the Black Feminist conference president Paris Hatcher on, and then we're talking about "Ain't I a Woman," because that's probably one of the first feminist speeches from a Black woman in this country. "Ain't I a Woman." Love that poem. And on this date in 1973, Thomas Bradley became the first Black mayor of Los Angeles. And we still celebrate Tom Bradley to this day. And now we have our first Black female mayor, known as Karen Bass. And so, Black leadership in LA is thriving. And of course, we're fighting to maintain it.
Is it an exaggeration at all to say that Tom Bradley to folks, especially Black folks in LA, Tom Bradley is like what oh gosh, Mayor Barry was to Black folks in DC?
Yeah, because he was the first. He was very beloved out here. He's still talked about to this day. For us, it was like having a Black president, Obama. You know what I'm saying? It was significant to our city. And like I was
Right.
saying, now the significance of Karen Bass being our mayor, although she's on the hot seat a lot these days, ever since the fires.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
you know, but Black leadership still thrives in LA, thanks to the footprints and the start of Mayor Bradley.
Yeah, yeah. Tom Bradley, I've always, when I lived out there, I mean, obviously that was after his time, but I always, you always heard about something he had his fingerprints on. He had his finger. It's like Mayor Barry. That's why I asked the question, because I know Mayor Barry in DC, Mayor for Life is what they still refer to the late Mayor Marion Barry as, but he had his fingers on the pulse of everything
Yeah.
in DC. So good to see that. Our Black-owned newspaper of the day is Greater Diversity News. Greater Diversity News is a North Carolina-based publication dedicated to empowering underrepresented, marginalized, and urban communities through journalism, civic engagement, and economic opportunity. It's headquartered in Wilmington, and it offers both print and digital editions, focusing on issues such as politics, education, business, and social justice. Greater Diversity News seeks, I should say, to be a trusted news source for underserved communities, covering topics that impact African American readers and other historically marginalized groups. So they also, Niele, emphasize voter education, civil rights, and HBCUs and economic empowerment. So there you are. They also highlight initiatives like a call to colors, which mobilizes Black students and faith communities around civic engagement. So that is Greater Diversity News in North Carolina. Check them out, folks.
Yeah, leave it to the Black press to give you news, views, and advocacy. So to keep up with all the headlines that are happening across Black America today, and it don't necessarily have to be a Black story for it to be important to Black folks, because we talk about Trump all day long. He ain't Black. But nevertheless, for all of those headlines, head over to BlackPressUSA.com.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, folks. We'll see you again tomorrow.